Welcome to the High School Huddle for week number 7. I'm Thad Brown, joined by Carl Jones as we break down the week in Section 5, look ahead to the weekend. Monster game on tap this weekend. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, Carl, we always start with a take and a story, and really mine is a little bit of both here. This week we had 3 Thursday night football games. And, Thursday night footballs happen from time to time in Section 5. Usually it's been about having a holiday in the way, or maybe there's a test or something that kids have to take, a Regents exam or something like that. But one of the big reasons, and probably the only reason this year, that these games are being played on Thursday is that there are not enough refs for Friday games. Now, that's in part because for the first time ever in Section 5, just about everybody has lights and can and does play on Friday night. So there's just more Friday night games for that reason. But because of the lack of officials, there have been multiple games now, and it's gotten every week, it seems to be more and more and more that are getting moved to Thursday. And, I know people probably heard this before, but I think it bears repeating as many times as we want to bring it up. If you have time and want to be an official in Section 5, whether it be football or any sport, they are in need of your help. And you can go to sectionv.org to check out, how you can sign up, whether it's football, basketball, field hockey, lacrosse, anything. But I think those cries for the help of the officials often fall on deaf ears because people see the sports and think, well, you know what? The games are still going on. Everybody's still playing. Can't be that big a deal. But we've seen now the last couple of weeks why it is exactly a big deal, because these football games where kids are, they grow up, they want to play on Friday night lights and do the big weekend thing. And not only that, from I know now with a daughter who's in high school, the Friday football game is a cool thing to go to. Well, when the game's on Thursday, it ain't as cool because kids got to get home and get homework done and get ready for school the next day. And, if there were, simply put, if there were more officials available in Section 5, then all these kids in these schools will get the chance to experience Friday night football. So everybody listening, if you want to be an official or have thought about it, please go to sectionv.org. Again, it's not just a football problem, but, football, we've seen the impact of it the last few weeks.
Well, I had no idea that was an issue. And that really is unfortunate because, as you said, I just remember as a kid, you always look forward to the Friday night games and being able to have the entire community come out to your games and support you, because you only get, let's be real, you don't get many opportunities to play on Friday nights. And for a lot of these kids, it'll be their last stop. It's not like they have the opportunity to play at the collegiate or even professional level. So you want to embrace those moments under those Friday night lights as much as you can.
Totally agree, Carl. What's your take high school wise? I'm sure a little less gravitas, but what do you got from the last week of high school sports for you?
Well, from the last week of high school sports for me is that I think the dominant teams have proved their worth and kind of separate themselves from the pack. Obviously, I've only been here a month, but the teams that I've seen that are known to be dominant have taken care of business, whether that was Canandaigua taking down Spencerport. I saw Spencerport girls soccer, which we'll get into later. Saw how they handled business yet again this past week. HFL and Batavia, although those are two teams who I think are kind of separating themselves in Class B, but HFL once again showed their worth. I just think that it's exciting to see, obviously, parity in sports, but at the same time, when there is a great team, you want to see them reach their full potential and do great things. So that was exciting to me.
One of the other great teams in Section 5 last 2 years has been Red Jacket. It's in a sport, though, that you actually want to mention here, and something that's, relatively very new to Section 5 in a lot of different places around the country.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get right into it. That's my take for the week is, coming from Ohio, there's no such thing as 8-man football. So when I was exposed to it for the first time, I was kind of a little thrown for a loop. And I didn't know how the sport would be played. I didn't know the numbers, what 3 players are you taking off of the field, and just how would the sport look at itself. However, as you and AJ told me, once you're there for about, 5-6 minutes, you kind of forget that there are only, 16 players on the field. It's a different experience, and I encourage everyone to at least check out a couple of teams, especially Red Jacket, as I saw, and they were dominant in the game that I saw against Pembroke. But the game spread out, so it can tend to be a little bit more high scoring. The way they scheme things up is a little bit different, just because there are only 3 linemen, so you can't just really sit back in the pocket all day because there's only 3 people protecting you. It's just an experience, and they tend to be smaller schools, so the community tends to rally around their teams a little bit more so than others. So I thought it was a great experience, and I recommend anyone and everyone to at least check out one 8-man football game in their life.
I could not agree more. I was a little, skeptical of the idea. I understood why schools were doing it. It's simply a numbers thing. They just don't have enough kids participating in football programs to play, safely and reasonably 11 on 11. So I wasn't like I looked down upon it, but I thought, well, geez, 8-man, it's probably gonna be a lot different. It won't feel like real football. And you're right, it does. I mean, there's no difference once you watch the game. It's just the game. I mean, how many times do you turn on an NFL game on Sunday and you're like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 21, 20. You don't ever get there, So, it's just football. And, I would not be surprised if a lot of Rochester City teams start trying to field 8-man teams in the semi near future because, we had Edison had trouble, fielding the team, couldn't put a team together, had to cancel late this year. Monroe, we've talked about a lot. AJ and I are both big fans of the Red Jacket program, but, they play every game where the other team has like 15 more kids than they do. So it might benefit a good number of city teams to field 8-man teams. And let me tell you, a city 8-man football program with the athletes that many city, football teams have could be super fun, so I would not be surprised if that is the relatively near future of Section 5 football. But you're right, man. It's nothing. It's just football. It's just football, and you don't really even think about how many kids are on the field.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the city teams trying to transition into that route. That would be very interesting, especially with the game being more spread out, putting the athletes in space, letting them do the thing. That would be fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's get into our teams that deserve pub this week. Kind of our under the radar segment. Doesn't always work out that way. But the one team I want to hit on is University Prep. The Griffins are 5-1. They're second at Class A2, I think. It's one of the A classes. But the point here is, look, this is a team that back in week 3 had Jordan Jackson get hurt. Serious injury, done for the year. He's a Division I commit going to Central Connecticut. And, look, there's a lot of talent in Section 5. There's not a lot of Division I talent. So you have a team that loses a player of that caliber. You think, wow, that might be crippling. How do they respond? Well, they responded by winning 3 in a row, and they're just dominating teams. Last 2 weeks, Rakeem Chanier, the running back, 300 yards from scrimmage both weeks. He had 310 last week, 307 the week before, 7 total touchdowns. Clyde Davis Jr. is their quarterback. He's been, fantastic so far. And UPrep is 5-1. They're number 2 in their class, right behind Brighton, who's 6-0. And Jackson got hurt in that Brighton game in a spot where Brighton was up a score with the ball with like 3 minutes to go. So Brighton was in control, probably going to win. But if UPrep gets to stop, then all bets are off. Point being is that, UPrep has already played the number 1 team in their class tight. And, clearly the Jackson injury has not, destroyed their season. So I think this team's playing with a ton of confidence, and very likely, I think, well, I wouldn't say very likely, but I'll say the favorite choice would be them and Brighton in the championship game. And I will be fascinated to see how it goes. But regardless, credit to the Griffins because, for a bunch of kids to see, and it was a bad injury, and I was there for when it happened, for the kids to be there on the field, to go through it, to see the ambulance on the field, to see their friend and, one of their best players, have a season ended that way, to respond the way they have. I've been very, very impressed.
I think that is always important and interesting to see how a team rallies around one of their better players coming back from such a gruesome injury like that, because it can go one or two ways. Like you said, it can either tank your season, the morale's down, and just seeing something gruesome like that, especially your friend. I mean, this isn't the professional level where these guys are getting paid. These are kids, and seeing one of your best friends, classmates, childhood hero, whatever you want to call it, get hurt like that can hurt a confidence, morale, or you can rally around it and respond better than ever. So I'm very happy to see that the Griffins have been able to respond like that. So for a team that's, I guess, under the radar, not really under the radar, but definitely deserves some more publicity for me, is the Spencerport girls soccer team. I was fortunate enough to see them play this week in person, and wow, was I impressed. They're currently ranked number 13 in the country by United Soccer's coaches.
The country, by the way, let's underline that. The country, not Section 5 of the state, the country.
And there's some numbers that they have, I guess, accumulated throughout the year that are just kind of just nuts to me. They've only allowed 4 goals all year. Not this week, not this past month. All season long, they've allowed 4 goals. They've scored 59 off 10 different players. That parity, that's just not one player dominating and carrying this team. This is a collective unit effort where everyone is able to participate and get there. So that's just nuts. Over the past 7 years, they officially won the division championship for Monroe County. this past Wednesday at Brighton. So that's 7 years in a row for that. They're seeking their 6th straight Section 5 championship this upcoming sectionals, I guess you can say, whoever they may meet in that regard. That, I guess, prolonged dominance is just unheard of and just remarkable in my eyes. I can't really focus on just one player in particular, just because when I watched them play, 5 different players scored in that game against Brighton. And Brighton is like no slouch. Like Brighton, I believe, was 11-3 going into that matchup. But the fact that 4 players scored in the first half, and then I guess they called off the dogs, I guess, so to speak, a little bit in the second half. But that team is dominant. And I think another thing that I was impressed with when I saw their schedule is that they're just not beating teams, I guess, 5-1, 5-0 every single game. They're playing close, tight-knit games as well, which shows to me that in any situation, they're able to respond and able to, I guess, come out on top. Because some games, you're just not going to have your A game, your A effort, right? But can you dig deep and find a way to just get the job done? Because they defeated Mercy the game before, 1-0. And Mercy, I believe, is only 7-6 on the year. So it's not like it was some top 10 matchup in the state, so to speak. But they found a way to get it done. And I think that's when you know you have a real champion in front of you, is that no matter the circumstances, no matter the situation, they're able to come out on top. So I was very impressed with what I've seen so far in the Spencerport girls soccer team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a good call, because a lot of times when you get a high school team that's nationally ranked or number 1 in the state, are just so good, they have rise to a high national level for whatever reason. Most of the time they're rolling through every game, whereby, 2/3 of the way through the thing's over and no one even cares about the last 20 minutes. And obviously soccer is the kind of sport that's built to where, even if you have a team that's more talented than another, it's kind of hard to get that ball in the net when you can't use your hands. So it lends itself to more, random type results. And the fact that Spencerport has continued to roll, like you said, and winning the close games along with the blowouts, that impresses me, because it doesn't happen a lot, high school sports. I mean, people watch professional sports all the time and you hear about any given Sunday, and, there's upsets left and right in the NBA and NHL regular season. It doesn't go that way in high school sports most of the time. High school sports, if I'm more talented than you, I'm going to beat you like 99 times out of 100. And 90 of those times I'm going to beat you by a lot. So for Spencerport to be able to deal with the close games, to me, that kind of surprises me, and same as you, impresses me even a little bit more.
Yeah, and I just can't wait to see if they can obviously win sectionals and see if they are able to get the monkey off their back and finally win states for the first time since 2017.
Cool. All right, let's move on to our best team we saw this week. Now, I didn't get any shooting in last week because I was in Kansas City for the Bills game, but a team I've been wanting to talk about for a little while is the ER Gananda Bombers. They are 6-0, top of their class. Mentioned a couple guys who've been really good. Carter Lathrop, their quarterback. Get this, he's got 369 yards passing the last 2 games on 16 completions. So he's averaging 20, 25 yards a completion. And that's kind of been the hallmark for this team lately is, big play touchdowns. Last week, they had 5 touchdowns of 40 yards or more. The week before, they had 3 touchdowns of 30 yards or more. Michael Daniels had a kickoff return for a touchdown last week. He, along with Chauncey Gilbert and Kadarrell Sneed, are the big weapons for ER Gananda. This has been a team that's been good for a long time. They kind of ping pong between being just nicely above average to totally dominant. And this year we're getting the latter version for ER Gananda. Last 2 games, 82-0 they've won. I'm told that's good. So, impressed with ER Gananda for sure. And another year where they are going to be a tough team to beat in sectionals.
That is not a team that I've been able to see thus far. However, AJ has told me that they're having a great year as well. So hopefully at some point throughout the rest of the year, we'll be able to at least catch one.
You're going to see a lot of them in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure. At some point, you're going to have to run into them in sectionals, because they're going to play a few sectional games this year. And, there's a state championship this year too. So I think ER Gananda will certainly be a contender for that title.
So yeah, I can't wait for that game. So for me, I was very fortunate enough with the big slate that we had last week. I was able to go out to Batavia and see them take on HFL, and that was one of the best games I've seen in a while.
Yeah, but just keep in mind that was what? It was 5-0, 5-0, right? Both teams were undefeated.
Yeah, both. One team is ranked 4th in the state, the other team is ranked 5th in the state, and I got chills just because it reminded me of high school football again. I mean, you can talk about the atmosphere. The student section was electric. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever went to a big-time Batavia game, but apparently when I mentioned it to a spectator on the sideline, they're like, oh, yeah, they're always like this. So I guess that was surreal for me to see. But about the game itself and the HFL, the team that I want to talk about, they were, as we talked about a little bit earlier with the Spencer Fort girls team battling adversity, they were down 20-7 at one point in this game. On the road, like I said, hostile environment, yet they still found a way to compose themselves and be cool, calm, and collected and find a way to come out on top. They were down 20-13 going into the half. And then right after the half, Batavia goes on a 75-yard touchdown run. So all those adjustments coach was giving you, all the rah-rah speeches that you were getting at halftime, that goes all out the window because clearly it didn't work, right? That clearly didn't work. However, once again, I was impressed with what I saw with the HFL because they didn't lie down on the road once again, which I want to repeat. When you're young and when you're a young kid like that on the road in an environment where everyone's yelling at you and the crowd's chanting every single touchdown, this, that, and the third, that can be a little bit intimidating because you're so used to having your fans and your friends and your family and your parents cheering you on, right? HFL is on the opposite sideline. They have no one cheering them on, none of that. But I was just impressed with that part. And then also about the players themselves. I talked about this with AJ last week. When a high school team can pass the ball, it's dangerous because most high school quarterbacks and receivers or even linemen in front of them can't execute all three at the same time. And when you can do that, it's special because not many high school defenses are equipped to go against that. So what Brody Young is doing out there, he's throwing the ball all around the yard, whether it's a swing pass to Zach Meacham, he's throwing it deep to some of his receivers down the field. Batavia, as the game went on, struggled with that a little bit because they couldn't, I guess, guard all corners of the field. So I was impressed in that regard. And then talking about Zach Meacham, he's an all-purpose guy. Love to see him, whether it was running it in, catch it out of the backfield. I was impressed with what I saw with them. I'm sure they'll meet up again in sectionals, but round one of that fight was amazing to see. But it goes to HFL.
You talk about HFL, being successful on the road. I saw him come back and beat Wayne in a really fun game at Wayne. Now, not the same environment. Don't get me wrong. Wayne's fans are good. But it wasn't, quite the, oh my goodness, everything is against you kind of thing, but still, to be able to rally like that after Wayne had really dominated the second half, took a lead late. And, you talk about Brody Young, marching down the field. In this game, took him 2 passes to go 70 yards for a touchdown, 30 yards and Nolan Smith, tight end, for the winner. HFL's done this before, and if you got a team that's already done this twice on the road, what are they going to be intimidated by in sectionals? They've seen it all. They've done it all. They accomplished it all. So Cougars won last year in the sectionals, and they're going to be a real tough out again this year.
I cannot wait to see what they accomplish, whether that they play Wayne again or Batavia. I don't know how the seeding works in Section 5, but I imagine they'll only have to play one of those teams. But regardless, I can't wait for them to get another shot at one of the big boys.
So, Carl, you only been here a month. I've been here 22 years. I still don't know how the seeding works in Section 5. I don't think most people do. I do know how it works. It's a point system, and it's based on quality of schedule and everything. But actually sitting here and telling you like, oh, okay, well, if they win this game, they're going to be the 3 seed. I don't know. But right now, HFL is the 1. Obviously, they're undefeated. Wayne is 2 and Batavia is 3. Wayne lost the game, had one canceled, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. So they're 4-1. Batavia is 5-1. So I think we're going to end up having, because Dansville and Bishop Kearney are the 4-5. And from what we've seen, Wayne and Batavia seem to be a level above that. I think you're going to get Wayne and Batavia playing a semifinal game, and the winner gets HFL in the championship. And either one, will be fun because, like I said, Wayne took HFL right to the buzzer, and so did Batavia. So I think in Class B, we've got a heck of a championship game on tap for us. Speaking of a heck of a game on tap, let's talk about this weekend. Looking ahead to the last thing we always do on the huddle here. And look, most of the time, AJ does a lot of the preview work, and we talk about, a little soccer, a couple football games. This weekend, there's really only one game worth talking about, and it's the big one. Aquinas and McQuaid, the rivalry renewed Friday night, 7:00. We're going to preview the game. We're recording this about lunchtime on Friday. I know a lot of you might see this after the game's being played, or after the game has been played, but regardless of who wins or loses, the environment's going to be electric, and it always is. And for people who don't know, and Carl just kind of lay this out for you, Aquinas and McQuaid have been rivals for decades. I went to Aquinas, so I understand the rivalry from the inside. These were 2 all boys schools going back, into the early 1940s and 50s. Aquinas actually brought in girls 40 years ago, but they still remain rivals. And the football dominance has ping ponged back and forth. When I played in the 90s, it was a little more McQuaid than Aquinas. Then in the late 90s, Aquinas kind of took over for a couple of decades. And now, in the last 2-3 years, it has been McQuaid. And McQuaid, although both teams are undefeated, I think all of us who watched them both play have been blown away by McQuaid so much that we make McQuaid the clear favorite. Not the favorite that can't lose, but the favorite in this game. And it's also based on the fact McQuaid's won the last 2 sectional championships. But, it's not just 6-0, 6-0. It's not just the top 2 teams in AA, maybe the top 2 teams in Section 5. It's about this rivalry and the big trophy that goes along with it. And the fact that this game is not played at one of the 2 high schools, it's going to be played at St. John Fisher College. And it's already sold out too, as of this morning. So, it's not a high school atmosphere we get a lot. I know you played high school football, Carl, in Ohio, which is, probably 3 or 12 notches above what you get here in Section 5 in terms of, interest level and electricity. But this game tonight is going to be a big deal. And, before I get into my X and O breakdown of it, I don't know how much you've seen both teams so far, but what's kind of your take on how this one plays out and what you're looking for tonight from these 2 games? These 2 teams.
Just piggybacking on a little bit, because I haven't seen McQuaid play, but I have seen Aquinas, and I saw them last week when they took on Brighton, I want to say. And no, it wasn't Brighton. It was I will get back to you.
Victor, yeah, last week, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
About Victor. And I was impressed with what I saw with them, just on the versatility of their offense. You had Michael, I believe, White. He for 4 touchdowns, so I thought that was exciting to see him not just do it on the ground, but throw it down the field. And then obviously they have Will Benjamin, who is their go-to do-it-all guy. So it's exciting to see that. Don't really have many X's and O's because, once again, I haven't seen McQuaid play. I only saw a quarter of Aquinas because I had to get out to Batavia and see that game. But I played in a rivalry similar to that back in Ohio, 2 all-boys schools, and you can't meet at the respective school because the game is so big. It's an electric game, and these kids will never forget this game ever. They'll be talking about this game when they're 30, 40 years old, whatever, whenever the conversation may come up. So I'm excited for these kids, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It's pretty cool actually to have your perspective, because, now I played in the game. We also played it at a college stadium, but it wasn't sold out. And it wasn't, I think we were Aquinas, we were 4-3, and McQuaid was 5-2 or something like that. Good teams, but not this year where they're both 6-0. And, one of them's probably going to win a sectional championship. But when you're playing in that season and you play game after game, at a high school field, and you're getting good crowds, but not about the crazy number. And then you go into this game where it is the rival, it is all the people, how do you as an athlete, or how did you, try and keep the emotions under control and just play the game?
Well, to be quite frank with you, you really don't. And it's one of those situations where all week everyone's clamoring for tickets, hey, can you give me this? Or hey, can you give me that? And then now you got your parents telling you that, hey, your uncle that you haven't seen in 6 years, they want to come to. It's just like one of those situations. So you got to worry about the ticket situation. Then your coaches they want to tell you that it's not that big of a deal and that it's just one game, but then the way that they're walking around practice and the way that they're yelling at you, it's like, okay, hold on. You're saying this is a big game, but the way you're talking to me is two separate moans and two separate tones, right? So it's one of those situations where until you go out the first quarter and you get hit for the first play, you're going to be in some days of just like, wow, I'm in a big time situation that I've never been in before. By the midway, the way I usually think about this in big games and when a team hasn't been in this situation before, let both teams get one drive on offense, and then after that, it's back to football again. So I would say these kids are going to be on cloud 9, nervous as hell for the first 6 minutes of this game, and after that, they realize the person in front of them wants to be physical with them. So they got to be like, okay, hold on, I don't care about grandma no more. I got to worry about being safe out here.
I think from the X&O point of view for me, and that's good perspective for sure. The thing for me in this game is McQuaid's passing game has been so good, so versatile. John Mahar throwing to guys like Zay Collier and Paris Smiley. It's going to be on Aquinas to at least slow that down. You can't have McQuaid going up down the field on you like the Knights have done to so many teams this year. Keep the game under control. And then, you brought up Michael White, the quarterback for Aquinas. I think he's the guy that has to have a big game. I think Will Benjamin's going to get his. He's such a good athlete, and Aquinas does a nice job in scheming him into open field. But it's on, White to me is the X factor. He's got to be able to, complete those big 3rd and longs and hit the big plays down the field, not just the Benjamin. And, Aquinas has got other weapons too. So I think those are the big 2 keys for Aquinas to stay in this game and pull off the win. And, I'm stopping short of saying upset because both teams are 6-0, but, McQuaid has just looked that good, all year long. And the funny thing about this game too, we talk about, big games and not being in this spot. There's a pretty good chance that these two teams are going to meet again in a month in the sectional final anyway, probably on the, another big time neutral field. So, this is kind of almost the warm up, but it's certainly, look, if Aquinas even plays McQuaid close, that's a win for them, because if they can handle their business in the rest of sectionals, then they'll have already stuck the thought in McQuaid that, wow, we can lose to this team. Whereas on the flip side, if McQuaid just rolls through Aquinas, by 2-3 touchdowns, then they're going to have such swag and such confidence going to sectionals. I don't know how anybody stops them.
Yeah, you're right. And as anyone who's ever played any sport at any level, majority of the game at some point is mental. So if you're defeated before you even go out there, you're screwed. So even though Aquinas is a very talented team, if they find themselves in a rout, I guess, in this game, that second matchup before they even get on the field will be tough, just because they're mental. They don't know how they'll be able to match up with McQuaid. So I agree with that point wholeheartedly.
Can it work the other way too? Do you think if a team feels so confident that McQuaid probably would, if they win this game tonight by a big margin, are they, how do I want to put it? Are they unbeatable, or is it something that would be more likely to make you overconfident and cause you a problem?
I think it goes both ways, and it depends on I guess we talked about this a little bit with the Bills. It depends on the leadership of the players, right? Because, I mean, if you got a veteran group who knows the goal at hand and understands that, yes, we are better than everyone that we play, and it's okay to feel like that, but we still respect everyone that we play. As long as you have that mindset, I think it's okay. But then the second that you lose the respect factor and lose the respect level for your opponents, that's when it can hurt you. But that's all on the players, because the coaches can only do but so much. I can't talk is cheap, right? At the end of the day, you have to go out there and play the games. And as long as the players are, I guess, veterans and pros about their mindset, about how they approach each and every game, they'll be fine.
So McQuaid, that'll be an interesting test for them, because although Bobby Bates, the head coach, has been around for a while, he's seen it all, done it all. This team is largely, a new team. I mean, a lot of the big time players from last year graduated, the guys who were key cogs in the last two sectional championships. So although, this McQuaid team is rolling through everybody so far, they have not finished it, this group. So learning how to finish it and figuring that out tonight, and, certainly going forward, I'll be a big part of whether or not this team can, finish the job and go on to the state playoffs of the sectional championship. All right, Carl, I think it's time to break the huddle. Thanks for joining me. Good stuff today. Look forward to seeing what happens in Aquinas McQuaid tonight. And we will do this again right here on RochesterFirst.com next week. See you all later.
Bye-bye.